Welcome to Plastic Model Mojo, a podcast dedicated to scale modeling, as well as the news and events around the hobby. Let's join Mike and Kentucky Dave as they strive to be informative, entertaining, and help you keep your modeling mojo alive.
Oh, man, it's the new year, Dave, and we got new stuff going on. How about that?
Yep. It's 2023 is going to be an even better year than 2022 was, and 2022 was pretty darn good for Plastic Model Mojo and you and me.
Well, we want to give a quick thanks to Bob Bear, the voice of Bob, for helping us out with our intro there, Dave.
Oh, it was fantastic. I love that. I thought you'd suddenly hit puberty.
Thank you. I'm a real baritone now.
That's right.
In the third chair with us tonight is Jim Bates of Scale Canadian TV. Jim, what's up on the West Coast?
Nothing much. I just want to ask, is that the voice of Bob or the voices in Bob's head?
You'll have to ask him.
I am great. How are you guys?
We're great. And we're going to get rolling right out of the chute here, man. Jim, what's up in your model sphere?
Well, it depends what you mean. If you mean what's going on my bench, nothing. If you mean, am I gearing up for the Model Mania show in February at the Museum of Flight? Yes. Basically, it's all show prep at this point.
Well, how's that going?
It's going well. I tend to have problems where I hold two completely divergent fears in my head. And my fear is I'm going to run out of tables. And my other fear is nobody's going to show up. So I don't know how I could be afraid of both of those, but it's coming along well. I think it's going to be a good show.
Well, planning for both of those equals mediocrity.
Well, I think our record was 3,000 models, and that'll never happen again. That was stressful for everybody, but probably, hopefully 1,500 or so. We'll see what happens.
You're the solo show chair this time, right?
I am. So it all falls on me.
That's great. Well, go ahead, and before we go on with the rest of the model sphere stuff, when and where's the show?
The show is at the Museum of Flight. It is February 18th and 19th. That's Saturday and Sunday. It is now officially titled Model Mania, and this is my idea of doing a show with no contest. It's just an exhibition. We will have display models. We will have one award. That's the curator's choice, selected by Audley, the curator. And we'll have seminars. Our special displays this year will be Black History Month and the World of Gundam.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And if you haven't been, we hold the show at the Great Gallery of the Museum of Flight underneath the Blackbird.
Well, Dave, what's up in your model sphere?
It's 2023. I have sworn that this year is the year that I eliminate wasted time from my life to find more modeling time. 2022 was good. 2023, I'm determined to make even better, but unfortunately my start to 2023 has not been great, simply from the standpoint that work is interfering. I've got a trial scheduled at the end of January, ironically in Mike's hometown in Lexington down the road, and that's sucking up a lot of free time.
Well, if you're going to be camped out here for a day or so, we have to make some plans.
Oh, definitely. Most definitely. So What's your model sphere look like?
Well, I tell you, I'm trying to figure out which shows I'm going to go to.
You mean we?
Well, yeah, we're going to go to.
Right.
Though your chance of going solo are probably higher than mine. I did have something this week, Dave, that's pretty interesting. That may feed into our plans as to what to do while you're up here.
Yeah.
I won't go into a lot of detail, but I went to visit our past guest, Alan, from oldmodelkits.com.
Yep.
Took in his workspace, we'll say, and yeah, that's pretty impressive. That's a lot of model kits.
To get this episode moving, I'm assuming everybody is equipped with a modeling fluid. Jim, what's your modeling fluid?
I have got a highball, I am told, which is Coke Zero and Rustic River Bourbon from Owensboro, Kentucky, which was a gift of friends of the show, the Knopfel family. They were in town and they passed along this bottle, and I thought, what better night to open it than tonight?
Great choice. Great choice. So can't wait to hear how that turns out.
Is that Hank and Company?
That is Hank and Company. Hank and Daniel and Carrie.
And they were out your way?
They were out their way. Carrie and Daniel are from here. And
okay.
They came out to see family and were staying down in the Tacoma area. And we met up and had a really nice dinner at Duke's, which is a well-known Seattle fish eatery.
Oh, well, that sounds like a great time.
It was. I think we closed the restaurant down. I think they had to kick us out.
So, Mike, do you have a modeling fluid?
I do. I'm still sipping on the Michter's I got for Christmas. So we did that last time, but that's what I'm drinking. And it's still good.
Yeah.
It didn't go bad.
I wouldn't think it would. I've got one from up your way, Mike. I've got a beer called Charismatic from Lexington Brewing Company. It is described as a golden pilsner. It's light alcohol-wise, only 4.5%, but I will tell you, the first sip is pretty darn good. And I don't know if you've had it since it's up in your area, but I think this one's going to get me through the episode. We'll see how it goes.
I'll have to try it because it's an ambitious name for a Pilsner. I would have to think.
Yes. Well, I'll let you know at the end.
Well, Dave, the holiday schedule has got the mailbag a little light, but I think we got a few good ones here.
Okay.
I know there's been some conversations on Facebook Messenger as well.
There have. It's actually been pretty busy.
Well, I tell you what, let's start with Greg Williams. Now, Greg called in to our little end-of-year call-in thing.
Yeah.
He appreciates the opportunity to call in to the show, and I think everybody did. We got several of those either immediate messages after we concluded that and through other venues, but it was good, and we're certainly going to be doing that again. And in fact, I owe somebody else an email, someone not in the United States, about the call in. Jim, you should have called in.
I was at dinner with friends, so I couldn't call in, and I knew I was going to be doing this. So you don't really want that much of me.
Well, we'll refrain from comment.
The nice thing was that was the first time we did it, and so we encountered a couple of technology issues, but now we know a lot from that, so that's going to make the next call in even better. As
a outside listener, I thought it was very cool.
We'll do it at least once again this year, probably twice. All right. Well, this is a good one, Dave. It's from our friend Steve Husted.
Mm-hmm.
Thanking us for letting him on the show. Well, I think that's mutual. We want to thank him for coming on our little program here. And this reminds me, this was supposed to have been in my model sphere because I didn't commit it to memory because it was so new. Have you got your journal today?
I haven't gotten the newest one yet.
Well, Steve spread for his float triplanes in there, and it's an 8-pager, man.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. The last time that, and Jim, you may remember this, I think it was at the, not Virginia Beach, but the Newport News or the other one that was held near Virginia Beach. And there was that B-17 or Model 299, the prototype of the B-17, which was a stunning model. And they managed to get the guy who built it to do a large article on it. And whenever they can do that, whenever they can get the guy who did the guy or gal who did Best of Show to commit to doing an article for the journal, it always makes that issue of the journal so much better. So I can't wait to see that.
Dave, not only do I remember that might be the best, that B-17 article might be the best article I've ever seen in a magazine.
I agree.
That because it had all the space to lay out what it needed. It was spectacular. So I hope Steve's is the same. And again, as a listener, I enjoyed Steve's last appearance, but he certainly has a voice for radio.
Yes,
that
he
guy
does.
Is buttery smooth when he is on your show.
Well, we're gonna have him back to talk about water effects. So
yes,
awesome,
and probably something after that. You just haven't thought it up yet.
Absolutely, absolutely. We'll figure that one out.
Well, up next is Danny Saint Laurent, and he's from Quebec City, up there in Canada, where Jim's from, sorta. And Dave, he wants to shout out to you for making him discover AK weathering pencils. He went to the hobby shop and saw them hidden in the corner and grabbed a few, and they're just great. So, how's it going with yours, Dave?
You know what? I used them on the Kate, and again, I'm still not getting the full potential that I think is there, but every time I do it, I love them, and I'm learning more and doing more. And man, these things have some really great potential once I get better at using them. You're welcome, because man, I made joke about AK and MIG and, you know, the dry brushing paint or tube glue or whatever product they may come out with next. But these weathering pencils, these watercolor weathering pencils really are a good innovation in the hobby.
Jim, you use them?
I tried them a little bit. I haven't quite figured out how to use them dry, but what I love about them is turning them into a solution.
Yes.
And I built I'm going to get this wrong. I'm going to call it a Comet. I did build a Comet, but that's not what I mean. A Cromwell, Airfix Cromwell earlier in the year. And it was in winter whitewash, so I painted the whole winter whitewash, but then I had a jerry can that very clearly was not painted when they painted the whitewash, so I wanted a different effect on it, and I took the white AK pencil and turned it into solution, and it got me exactly what I wanted, so thumbs up. The only thing I learned is the metallics do not go into solution, which made me sad.
That is absolutely correct. The only watercolor pencils that don't go into a solution are the metallic ones. And to be honest with you, that's not really a problem, because if you're using the metallics, at least to simulate chipping and all, you don't want a solution. You want hard edges and such. I like these things, and I can't wait to use them more and actually figure out and learn what all of the things I should be doing.
Yeah, what I was trying to do, Dave, is I was trying to turn the metallic into a solution as a wash to put into my panel lines for my never-ending attempt to make warbirds out of scale models.
You just have to sharpen up those pencils. The metallic ones, you need to get really sharp.
Well, I ended up using one of your favorite products, MIG Ammo Oil Brusher, and that did what I wanted to have happen. I could get that into the panel lines, and it worked out really well.
Well, I haven't tried them yet, and I'm not sure I will. So, up next, Jason Campbell. And Jason is a gunpla modeler for the most part, and he just attended the 2023 Chattanooga ModelCon.
Mm-hmm.
And he had an experience down there he didn't like. And it's let me qualify that a little bit. This is not a reflection of the folks in Chattanooga running the event.
No, he was extremely complimentary of them.
Yes, he was. He was put off by some sidebar comments being made by folks at the show about the gunpla entries, and it's the typical stuff. It's the why are they even here? Why would anybody want to do that? How do you judge it? What's this all about? It's the old school curmudgeon kind of stuff, and he was really put out by it. He'd send us a lengthy email, and counter to our normal mode of operation here at Plastic Model Mojo, I actually sent this to you and Jim.
Yeah.
So you could actually formulate some thoughts around this, because I thought this one was kind of important. And normally we like to get your stuff off the cuff, but this time I thought maybe this would be a good one to see, because back at what we've said before, he says it in this email that he's moved on to other genres of modeling to learn stuff so he can play it back on his stuff he really rather build, which is the Gunpla stuff.
Right.
Aircraft, armor, whatever. And, if folks want this, in the IPMS anyway, if they want this thing to have any kind of continuation, to not die with them.
Yeah.
This stuff's got to stop. And these folks, I'm glad they were at Chattanooga. I think this is the same group that was participating in the Knoxville show.
Yeah.
Because I think we had a listener mail last time about this, at the Chattanooga show coming up, or maybe it was the Murfreesboro show. But anyway, what do you think? What do you guys think about this?
Well, let me start. As the recruitment and retention secretary for IPMS USA, this drives me up a wall, simply because the Warhammer people, the Gunpla stuff,
Machine and Krieger,
these folks are modelers. They are modelers just like we are. Now, they do a different subject, but that's irrelevant. I want the society to grow. I want the hobby to grow. And, even if it's not your cup of tea, what you say in your hotel room with people sitting around, you can say whatever you want. But at the show, do not say that. And the attitude itself is dumb. Yes, I get it. You don't get it. But then again, if you're an aircraft modeler, you may look at cars and go, I don't get it. But it's part of the hobby. And stop being stupid. But I will tell you, we at IPMS USA, and some people don't like it, but we are making a major outreach to the Gunpla, Warhammer, Machine and Krieger, science fiction modelers. They are an untapped area, and IPMS USA is making a concerted effort to bring those folks in. Because again, just like they start modeling in other genres because they want to learn stuff that they can then apply to their models, same thing goes the other way. Okay? We can learn from them. They apply techniques. I mean, as an example, and it's a small example, Mike, you and I have mentioned once or twice before, usually after the Wonderfest show. The guys at Science Fiction are worlds ahead of everybody else using lighting kits and stuff like that to enhance models. And they truly do enhance the appearance of models. But those guys are world ahead.
When the rubber hits the road, these folks aren't squawking about, Star Trek and Star Wars models.
Right.
That's no more based in reality than Gunpla. I mean, does it make any difference if it's a fictional movie with live actors in it or some Japanese anime?
No.
I mean, really?
Nope.
To me, it doesn't. And then, he called into our end of year episode, Brian Dinklauer at the Build Sideways podcast. I mean, you've seen the stuff he's built.
Absolutely.
The Gunpla and all that. And it's to say he's not a modeler. I mean, God, I mean, that would be insulting. I mean,
yep.
It is.
And it is insulting, guys, be welcoming, because the hobby as a whole needs as many people as it can get. You don't have to have any interest in a particular area of modeling to see the beauty, to see the art, to take 5 minutes instead of making a snide comment, take 5 minutes and talk to the person about what they're doing and why they're doing it. And you're going to find you scratch the Gunpla modeler or the Warhammer modeler, you're going to find a modeler. So I'll shut up now.
Because Jim's chomping at the bit.
Yeah, I know. Jim and I have had this conversation. In fact, he is actively recruiting Gunpla modelers out in the Pacific Northwest.
Well, Jim, you alluded to it in your little pitch for your Museum of Flight show. So lay it on us, brother.
That's flat out why I decided one of the special subjects at our February show would be Gundam. First of all, his email made me really sad to read. It's just, there's so many things that I could parse on that. The first one being, if you don't like something, first of all, one of the struggles I even have in the hobby is people are so negative. Like, if it's not what I build, it's garbage. And that's not the approach we should have. We should be positive. And maybe I spend too much time trying to live positively instead of negatively. But one, don't be saying those things. Like Dave said, if you're doing it in your hotel room with your two buddies, knock yourself out. But don't say that don't be negative on the show floor. I wish that was something we could have at IPMS shows, of don't be negative on the show floor. But his sign off was, for the hobby to grow, the elitist attitude of one subject being better than the other must die. All modeling is awesome, and all of us can teach new things to one another, sums it up to me. I think that there are so many. First of all, Gundam is the highest selling model. So I always wonder if there's some like insecurity in IPMS that these things are more popular. And that's where some of this comes from. But they are. And this is what the young people and the kids do. And I don't necessarily feel that the sci-fi aspect is the issue here. I feel like it's just something different. And arguably, I would say the Gundams are more real than the Star Wars stuff. Well, that's not really true, because there's an X-Wing in the Smithsonian. But there are full-scale Gundams in Japan, so they are real things, I don't care where people come from. I just want people plastic scale modeling. And this is no more different than anything we do. And I think one of the things us older modelers need to realize, and I struggle with this because I'm a research guy, is people aren't necessarily as interested in the full size original that maybe I am. And even airplane modelers or armor modelers are doing things that are sort of sci-fi because they're not building a specific airplane from a photo. And I've done that. That's kind of the way I approach the hobby, but there's a million different ways and all of them are acceptable. And it makes me sad that people are bad-mouthing this. And I think that Jason's email shows we can attract people into other modeling genres by being welcoming to the Gundam guys. And we have a young guy, Josh, in our local club. He showed up at the February show. He's given me a couple Gundams to build, one of which I'm working on right now. And he started building, some Battlestar Galactica. I think that's actually a favorite. And looking at doing a tank. So I think everything is a crossover, and all models matter, I guess, is my is my slogan. And I think it's just time for people to stop being negative, be inclusive rather than exclusive.
Yep. Absolutely, 100%.
And the hobby's not going to grow if we say the only real things are tanks and airplanes.
Anything else?
No.
I think we...
Not unless you want me to cuss.
Well, we wouldn't want that, Dave.
That's right.
Don't make me check the box.
That's right.
Well, finally, on the email front is our good friend from New York City, Mr. Michael Karnauka.
Oh, we got a question.
I have a question. What New Year's resolution do you wish model companies would make for their new year and beyond? For him, it's two things. He wishes manufacturers would stop supplying soft plastic or vinyl tires.
That's a good one.
The rubber portions of tank road wheels and stuff.
Yep.
He'd rather have less detailed parts in styrene than the gimmickry rubber stuff. Well, I'm not so sure they're less detailed. They may be more detailed.
Right.
But I agree that's kind of gimmicky. Got the hard seams to get rid of, etc. And then his other one is the delusions of grandeur with model kit announcements. They'll make an announcement or a slate of announcements, and they'll get through about 2/5 of it or whatever. And the one you're really interested in never comes to fruition. It just disappears.
Well, having grown up in the 80s and 90s, Mike, I'm sure you remember the term vaporware.
Yes.
Where software companies would announce products specifically to try and keep other companies from releasing similar products, even though they had no intent or ability to actually release the software. They just wanted to freeze the other companies in place. And I'm not so sure that model companies don't do that as well.
Well, at least they freeze it till they can get around to doing it themselves on their own schedule.
Exactly.
Do you have one, Dave, that
well, mine is personal. It's not
you wish they would do?
It's not for model companies. It's for me. I need to, as I mentioned earlier, I need to do better with my time management. I've got a bunch of dead time in my life that I need to recover and utilize. So the one thing you can't get more of is time. So you need to utilize the time you've got the best you can. So it's not for model companies. It's for me. Although if the model companies want to be more efficient, so they release more of the stuff they've announced more quickly, I'm all for it, because I'm still waiting for that Kinetic C17 that was announced for like 4 or 5 years ago.
What about you, Jim?
It's very simple for me. I don't need the photo etch. I don't need the resin. Just put the masks in the kit so I don't have to buy them separately, please.
Yes. Amen, Jim. Good one.
I'm going to double down on one of his, man. The vinyl tires, I can't stand that.
No. You immediately go looking for the resin aftermarket, right?
So I think it was that in my last broke your wallet segment, I bought that AFV Club that German armored car.
Yeah.
It's got frickin' vinyl tires in it.
Frickin' vinyl tires. Is that like
Fargan
what was it?
Vinyl tires.
Bass with laser beams?
I was going to ask, do the car guys hate them as much as we do?
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so. I think that's a great question. Any of you car modelers out there listening, almost every car kit comes with those black vinyl tires. Do you all hate them? Do you all replace them, or are they okay for you all? Please let us know, because I'd like some insight on that.
Yeah, because it seems interesting that all the armor guys are always buying resin replacements, and I don't know, I just literally have no clue if the car guys do the same thing. But the by far worst vinyl I've ever had to deal with in my life was this company called AMT did an F7F Tiger Cat in 48 scale. And
Yep.
Dave is going to probably block me for saying this because I'm going to mention something not in 72nd, but it was a newer tool than the 72nd scale kit.
Yep.
I bought this kit, threw it in the stash. There were some vinyl tires in the plastic. I pull it out to build it, and whatever vinyl they used not only etched the plastic, it ate into the plastic. So
Yep.
I had fuselage halves with giant tire impressions in the side.
Yeah.
So that kit went in the garbage. That was very disappointing.
Well, Dave, like I said, that's the last one for the email account. What's been happening on Facebook?
Lots of stuff. Facebook's probably been more active than the emails over the last 2 weeks. First of all, a number of people have DM'd me to tell me that my constant nagging has finally had the effect, and they've joined IPMS or USA or rejoined IPMS. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Believe me, I bring that to the attention of the IPMS e-board every chance I get. So I appreciate you all not only doing that, but telling me you've done it. And there are too many people to mention, but thank you all for doing it. We've had a bunch of interesting ones. Let me start with Bruce Warhol, Evans Keeper. And Bruce took offense at my deriding the Kingfisher as an ugly aircraft, but he kind of misunderstood what I was referring to. I was not referring to the float plane version, which is actually not a bad looking aircraft. Not the greatest, but not bad. But we had a discussion about what I meant, which was the land plane version where the floats are removed and they put wheels on the fixed landing gear on the aircraft, as opposed to wheels on the floats, which they did sometime for beaching and such. And so we had a real nice exchange and exchanged basically pictures of ugly kingfishers with the true landing gear, fixed landing gear on there. And he was willing to admit that is aesthetically challenged. Our friend Tyler Artis reached out, and he said he was looking forward to seeing us at BlizzCon in Columbus. So, Mike, you now have to make sure you can attend BlizzCon. But he also wanted me to mention that the Buckeye Classic model show is in Hilliard, Ohio on March 18th. Doors open at 8 a.m. This is an automotive show. He wants everybody to be aware that the Buckeye Classic in Hilliard, Ohio is going to be on Saturday, March 18th at 8 a.m. And they're going to have a full vendor room as well as an automotive model contest. Next, you and I both responded to this guy. It's kind of interesting. We had a listener named Tyler Jones reach out to us. Tyler, if you're listening, hi. And Tyler was an interesting listener. He hadn't modeled as a child. He started listening to the podcast, and he also had been watching modeling YouTube videos and such, and became interested in modeling. And he wanted to start modeling, which, again, is unusual. Usually, most of the folks who Mike and I talk to say, I'm re-entering the hobby after X number of years, etc. But Tyler was he hadn't done modeling at all. And so he was asking for advice regarding tools, and he didn't want to buy crappy tools and then find out, as he got more into the hobby, that he, needed to replace those less than great tools with better tools. He and Mike and I had an interesting discussion about what's a good first kit, what are your areas of interest, talked about airbrushes, talked about other tools. Mike pointed him toward Dr. Strangebrush because Harder and Steenbeck has released a new beginner airbrush or entry-level airbrush that's somewhat equivalent to the Badger 150. So it was kind of interesting to interact with somebody who had no history in the hobby whatsoever, but through YouTube and through listening to podcasts has suddenly become interested and wants to try his hand at it. So I found that kind of interesting and encouraging. Didn't you, Mike?
I did, but I think it's an AK airbrush. That's the beginner one or the entry level one.
AK. Okay. Sorry. H&S AK.
But
I get my stuff.
He can sort that out with the Mr. Miller, Dr. Miller,
yes.
And hopefully get something good he can try out there.
Yep. And one of the things you pointed out to him regarding Dr. Miller is that if you purchase from him, not only are you purchasing from him, but as we've noted on the podcast before, John is very, very open to particularly people with questions. John's a teacher by nature. And so he's very open to, if you can't figure out how to do something, or if you're having trouble doing something, he's really good at that. So that was a great interaction.
Is that it?
That's it from Facebook.
All right. Well, that's it for listener mail.
All right. Well, this is the point in the podcast where I ask you, if when you're done listening to this, if you'll please rate us on whatever podcast app you're listening to us on. Give us a 5-star rating. It helps us become more visible and grow. Additionally, if you're listening to us, almost all of you know at least one other modeler. You're interacting with another modeler. Maybe that modeler doesn't know about podcasts, doesn't listen to Plastic Model Mojo. Please take a minute, tell them about it, and not only that, help them and show them how to access it. We continue to grow. Mike and I are constantly talking about the continued growth and how it surprises us in some ways. So if you would please help us out, we appreciate that.
In addition to that, please check out all the other podcasts out there in the model sphere. You can do that by going to www.modelpodcasts.com. That's Model Podcast plural. Is a consortium website set up with the help of Stuart Clark up in Canada, the Scale Model Podcasts, and we've created a website there with the banners to all the podcasts who are with us in spirit of cross promotion. And you can go there and find all the other podcasts and give those folks a listen too. In addition to podcasts, we've got a lot of blog and YouTube friends out there in the model sphere. We've got Jeff Groves at Inch High Guy blog. He's the 72nd scale guy. He's got all kinds of information out there for you 72nd scale fans. Stephen Lee, Sprue Pie with Frets, long and short form blog. I haven't checked him out lately. Dave, what's he been up to?
He's actually been doing more short form stuff of late, basically views from his bench. He's been doing a ton of vehicles of late, and really just the consistent quality. It's always nice to visit every day to see what's up, be it a short article or a longer think piece. So stop by.
And also Chris Wallace, model airplane maker. He just dropped one not too long ago about top shelf modelers. It was kind of humorous and funny, and always looking forward to his YouTube releases and his blog. So check out the Model Airplane Maker blog.
He also just dropped a video over the weekend about his most wanted kits for 2023.
I was going to bring that up. That is pretty awesome.
And Jim, you got a little YouTube channel too. Why don't you tell us about Scale Canadian TV and what's going on?
I used to do this Scale Canadian TV YouTube thing. I kind of... the last quarter of 2022 kind of wasn't the best for a lot of different reasons and got distracted, but I am a well-known Airfix apologist. And tomorrow, well, when we're recording, but this will have happened by the time you hear this, on Tuesday, Airfix released their new releases for 2023. So that might bring the Scale Canadian out of hibernation.
Well, we hope so.
I'm counting on that.
And check out our good friend Evan McCallum, Panzermeister 36 on YouTube. He's always got something you need to go watch.
Indeed, he does. Finally, I mentioned earlier in the show how people have been responding to my constant nagging by actually joining IPMS USA. If you're not a member of IPMS USA, IPMS Canada, IPMS Israel, IPMS Norway, wherever you happen to live, if you're not a member of your national IPMS organization, please join. The national organization does a lot of good.
All right. Well, we've mentioned them before, but let's have a word from our sponsor, Model Paint Solutions. Plastic Model Mojo is now brought to you by Model Paint Solutions, your source for Harder Steenbeck airbrushes, David Union power tools, and laboratory-grade mixing, measuring, and storage tools for use with all your model paints, be they acrylic, enamels, or lacquers. Check them out at www.modelpaintsolutions.com. Well, guys, it's come and make it to Texas time. It's getting close, Dave. Closer.
Yes, it is.
At the time of this recording, we are a mere 206 days away from the IPMS National Convention in San Marcos, Texas. We're making fantasy plans in earnest. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, I know, man.
What's going to happen there? Jim, what about you? You going to make it?
I sure hope so.
We hope you do, too.
I don't have a hotel room or a plane ticket, but plane tickets are easy to get. And, I'll just show up and stay on your guys' couch.
Yeah, that couch is available.
I thought you already had a squatter invite.
I think Bruce Worrell gave me an invite. I think Tim Nelson might have an extra bed. I'll figure it out.
So we could all kick you out and you'd have someplace to go the next night.
That's right. Yeah.
because I don't know how quickly before I'll get kicked out myself, so I better have multiple places to stay.
Hey, as long as the police don't show up and kick us all out, that'll be great.
Well, after the SWAT team showed up in Omaha, I'm really looking forward to how we're going to top that.
Well, I can't wait, Mike. That's going to be a good show.
Well, at the time of this recording, we're going to give this one a little bit of a pause and make our jokes there and not say a whole lot. I have an update from Brandon Jacob, Special Agent 003, and I owe him some Winter Blitz airtime, and I've failed to get that into this episode. We're going to have to record a little special with him, so I'll be in contact with him this week and see if we can't set that up, Dave, and try to get that in after this episode, but before the next one.
Sounds good.
Well, if we skip on down the list, guys, it's the Bench Top Halftime Report brought to us by Tackett Z, Ed Tackett, our friend from the club, www.tacketz.com, the must-have tools for the model maker. And, he had something on there. I was on his website yesterday, and he's got, for the dropper bottles, I've got those racks I got from him. He's got some now that'll mount on a pegboard.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, I want to see that because that could come in really useful.
Yeah, I think that one gets it off the bench, right?
Yeah, exactly. Anything that will clear space on my bench, which right now you couldn't find 6 square inches of clear space. It's sad.
Well, I'm sure that's yours, but Jim, what do you got going on your bench?
Oh, not much, and I need to get moving because I have a Spitfire, a Buzz Burling Spitfire I have to have done for early January for a display at the museum, and then I have a bow fighter that I've got, get done for my show. And then I've got another Spitfire that needs to be done for the museum in, I want to say June, so I got to get building. And I'm not even an airplane builder anymore. I want to build tanks, and all I get are these airplane assignments. So,
well, good luck. It's a lot of it seems like every year it's a perennial issue. You're getting done something for the museum display.
Oh, honestly, the museum display is what I spend most of my time building for. I don't build the stuff I want to build. I build the stuff that people kind of force me into. And Dave keeps telling me that there's this word "no," but I'm not really sure how it works.
Well, Dave, you doing any better than that? I think you are, maybe.
Well, I am. The Kate, Jim and I have a dispute about whether the Kate got finished in 2022. Technically, it did not, because I've still got an antenna to rig and an antenna post to put in, and I still haven't slipped the propeller on. But other than that, it's done. So now I am focusing full time on the Mooseroo. And as a matter of fact, I was working from home today, and during a little bit of dead time, I managed to get the landing gear and one half of the wheel hubs sprayed. And after we finish recording this, I'm going to get the other half of the wheel hubs sprayed. It's moving along. I'm pretty happy with it, but the problem is I'm under the gun, man. I've got at best 75, 80 days to get this thing finished.
So point of order here on 2 points.
Yes.
Dave, you do understand that it's not just a propeller and landing gear for the Mustang. You got to build the whole airplane. But the bigger issue is I don't think there is a dispute if the Kate is finished. If it doesn't have a propeller, it's not done. So you can't count that. You can't say, well, I got close.
Who made you the boss of me?
You've got to look at Beamish's Model Rules of Order by Bruce Beamish, and he has what counts as a finished kit right in the book, and that's not done.
No, you're not the boss of me.
I am the hobby boss of you, yes.
Oh, well, let's put it this way. I'll take your advice when I see you finish something.
Oh, man.
I felled him with that one.
I was about to say, who finished 3 models last year and who finished 2? Oh, that's right. 3 was me.
Mike, enough of this petty squabbling. What does your bench look like?
I've been kind of busy. I weathered the dark period fairly well. I got one run of the tracks done, the Tankcraft KV tracks, and I keep threatening to make a video, so I haven't progressed any further on that because I haven't shot the video yet. But I got this outline laid out. I know what I'm going to do, so hopefully I'm going to get to that in the coming week or so and put that out for the world to see or make fun of. In the meanwhile, on that project, I've started to clean up all the parts for the railroad tracks that are going to go on the diorama base.
Well, you did a little bit more than clean them up. I've got to admit, I'm a little impressed by what you did with those ties.
It's interesting. Those railroad track kits, they've got a lot of parts, and it's a lot of the same sprue over and over and over again, right?
Right.
Unfortunately, the way they're designed, there's 2 of the track spikes molded on the tie plate. Well, for each half, so 4 total. And those things took a beating during transit, or once from the time they were molded, put in the box, and the time I got them, a lot of them got damaged. I've got enough to do what I want to do, but I guess the upside is I had a lot to experiment with. Well, because of the sides of the ties and the ends of the ties are parallel to the pull direction of the mold, there's no detail on them. And I thought they weren't going to be buried in ballast all the way up to the tops of the ties. It's typically not how it's done, at least not on mainline railroad. But right. It was going to show. I just thought it was going to be a glaring thing that was going to show.
Yeah, so it's a smooth, flat surface where it shouldn't be.
On the long ends or long sides, it's easy. And my favorite method now is to use the 80 grit block out of the Goodman super sanding blocks or something like that if you don't have those. But that's real good to put a wood grain on plastic with, because that's pretty stinking coarse. That's not going to be very useful for much else other than big blocks of resin or something like that. But it's good for destroying plastic.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of railroad ties are cut from single cabers or single logs, and a lot of them have circular end grain. They have the growth ring in the end grain.
Right.
And I thought that would be a nice touch, but I was like, well, how to do it? And I started out trying to just hold the tie against a piece of sandpaper on the workbench and turning it in my hand, but you can't maintain a center doing that. It's drifting all over the place, right? So you end up just sanding the end of the tie without putting any real apparent circular grooves in it. So I just 3D printed this little sleeve that will slip over the end of the tie, and it's got a blind hole in the end of it. And at the bottom of the hole, I put a patch of sandpaper that I've cut with my circle cutter, my thinner line circle cutter.
As you noted, that thinner line has come in much more handy than you and I might have thought it would.
Oh yeah, I like it a lot. I highly recommend it. Or I don't know how good the other ones are, the Display one, or there's a couple others too.
Right.
But if they all do the similar thing, then I think it's a worthwhile investment for your workbench. But back to the ties, you slip that on there and give it a couple kind of herky jerky turns, and you get this nice end grain on the end of the tie. And then you can like soften it up with liquid cement and kind of get all the fuzz off of it. And it worked out really well. I was surprised. So
I was amazed that it worked out that well. It really looks good. If you go on the dojo, Mike has posted some photos of it, and they really do look like tree rings.
So I've got all the ties have the long sides cleaned up. All the sprue gates are off of those. I've got the rails. Got the sprue gates off of those, sanded smooth on the top surfaces and kind of polished with liquid cement to get all the scratches out of it. The next step with that is to square up the ends of the ties to truly vertical, because there's a draft angle on them.
Right.
Where they came out of the mold, so they would come out of the mold. And if you just put my little tool over the end of that, it'll only touch at the very bottom of the tie, because the tie is not vertical on the end.
Right.
So the flat bottom of the hole won't meet a flat surface on the end of the tie if I don't address the issue. So now I've got to set up I've got the Northwest short line True Sander, the one with the block and the guide on it. And you don't need that, but I used it a lot during model railroading. So I've got one, but I just got to hit those with sandpaper to get them truly vertical, and then put the rings on the end of all of those and the side grain on all of those, and then start putting it together, because I got to have the track to pose the wheels of the tank. So
gotcha.
And I was doing something else. Oh, the turret for the KV-85 project is A resin. It's a Russian firm. It's probably going to be hard to get right now. But the turret ring is made for, I don't know what kit. I really don't know what kit is supposed to fit, but it's actually an IS-1 turret, or an IS-85 turret, which maybe is meant to fit probably a Zvezda IS-2. It's probably what it's made to fit, just by the logic of it. But I needed to fit a Bronco KV-85 hull, so I've been trying to 3D print our new ring to put in the bottom of it to replace the one that came with the resin kit. And I don't know, it's a big diameter. It's hard to measure with my calipers, and I keep getting it wrong. So I'm about my third iteration. In fact, the printer stopped about 20 minutes ago, and tomorrow at lunch, I'll see if this one works. In addition to that, I've had success getting I don't know if I talked about this before, but the catapult to the my Paul E16 Paul float plane project is base coated and satin finished, is ready to start weathering. So when I get the inkling to start painting again, I can just crack that sucker out and go to town on it. So,
well, you need to hop back on that one.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
So I've been busy. I did pretty good over the holidays.
Yeah. Well, good. I didn't do great, but I did better than many years. So yeah, not bad.
All right, guys, if that's it.
We've got faves and yawns here. It's been a while since we've done it. Jim, since you're our guest tonight, do you want to give us one of your recently announced favorites?
Well, that is exceedingly easy. Airfix did their announcements for the year today, and they were somewhat disappointing. But I have been raging on about a 1/35th scale ferret, and Airfix today announced a 1/35th scale ferret. So I'm very excited about that.
Yes. Overall, otherwise, I found the Airfix announcements pretty disappointing, but maybe it just wasn't my year. But yeah, I can see where the ferret's going to be popular.
Yeah, it's never been done in 1/35th in injected plastic, which blows my mind.
Yeah, I know. You and I talked about that about like 9 months ago. And It was surprising that it never has been. So, Mike, do you have a fave?
Yeah, so I'm going to knock out two with one because they're kind of the same thing. And they fall into the vein of what kind of the state of the hobby with regard to 3D printing and the kind of thing it is allowing to happen in the marketplace. There's a company called EMP out of Poland. We'll start with them.
Okay.
Now, they've come out with a series of 3D printed headlights. I mean, like vintage auto headlights, fender mounted headlights, like on trucks, the globe headlights or whatever you want to call them. Because these are 3D printed and the geometry can be changed, I mean, in a split second a lot of times, and the size can be changed in a split second. They offer these headlights. They're just the bodies, but they offer them in 3 different basic shapes. In each shape, there are 6 size ranges. So each part number that you could buy has two adjacent sizes, like, I don't know, 8 and 9 millimeter diameter, something like that. Mm-hmm. And then the next one's 10 and 11. So 3 shapes, 6 different size ranges. So that's 18 different headlight possibilities that you could have for scratch building, replacing kit parts that are solid molded. But I mean, you couldn't do this without a lot of time investment and expense if you're trying to do this with traditional rubber molded resin casting.
Yeah. Yeah. No, the nice thing is with 3D printing, once you get the CAD item right, and now you're seeing more and more companies take figures, for instance. They'll offer you the same figure pose in everywhere from 72nd scale up to 35th scale or 32nd scale. And once they've got the basic CAD drawn, that's an easy thing to change. And so I think we're going to see a lot more stuff that's cross available in multiple scales. And that's going to be really kind of interesting. And I'm not sure we know all the ramifications of that yet, but I can't wait to see it.
Well, I've misread my notes here. I do have two faves. We'll save one for later. The other part of the EMP one is they also have a series of hand tools, 3D printed. So screwdrivers, hammers, wrenches, and all that. They got that same thing, multiple sizes, and just you can get it. You can get it have whatever size you want.
Well,
what about you? You got one?
For my first fave, I'm going to steal Jim's thunder because I suspect this is going to be one of his faves too. Vespid Models released a 72nd scale kit of the Centurion Tank Mark V, the /1 Royal Australian Armored Corps version, the ones the Australians brought to Vietnam. And that's just a wicked cool tank. I can see that one being a hot item. Jim, you got another fave?
Well, I did, but as predicted, you stole it. I was going to mention the Vespid Centurion, which, by the way, showed up in the plastic model penthouse here last night.
All right. What did you think of it?
Again, it looks really good. It's really interesting to get a package locker notification and have no idea what is waiting for you. And it even be more exciting when it's your long wished for 72nd scale Centurion. I guess I'm going to have to buy myself a Tamiya F-35 because Canada just announced that they're buying some of them finally.
88 of them, to be exact.
Well, not 88 being signed at this time. They're buying them in tranches. With some cynics saying then the Canadian government at the time can just decide we don't need 88 anymore.
Yeah, but you will have to build an F-35 as soon as one shows up in Canadian markings.
Yeah, in 2026 if I'm still here.
So, Mike, you got another fave?
I do. Again from Poland, Micro World. Gotcha. They've got a bunch of 35th and 72nd scale armor-related barrels. They may have some aircraft stuff too, but in their 35th scale range, they have a barrel for the Hotchkiss mounting for the Polish TKS.
Nice.
So looking forward to that one. I'm going to get that one for sure. And they've got a lot of modern tank barrels in 72nd scale.
Yes, I saw that. They announced just a ton of stuff all at once.
Well, you got another fave, man?
Yes, I do. Hi, my name's David. I'm a decalholic. A company called DP Casper puts out sheets that are themed around either a particular war or, for World War II, particular operations. And they do aircraft from all sides involved. I like their sheets. I own a bunch of them. It tickles the right spot for me. And they just announced 3 new sheets. One is Victory in Abyssinia, which is a World War II Italian-German sheet, British too. Then Over the Balkans, which is the Balkan War from 93 to 99. And then they have released their first Ukraine 2002 sheet, which I suspect we'll see more of those as well. But I can tell you that all of these sheets are going to end up eventually in the decal dungeon. So can't wait for those. Was happy to see them announced. Jim, do you have either another fave or a yawn?
I have one final fave, and you'd be shocked listening to this episode to realize I'm a 72nd scale modeler, because my next fave is Kinetic finally announced the least best kept secret in modeling that they are doing a 148 scale Canadair Tudor, the mount of the Snowbird. So I'm very excited about that. And I think Kinetic's been doing some pretty nice models recently. So it'll be nice to finally be able to say that the Hobbycraft Tudor, at least in 148th, is consigned to the dustbin of history.
I knew that one would make you happy.
And honestly, as much as this probably makes you a gas, Dave, it's a nice model in 48th because it's kind of a small airplane.
Oh yeah,
that's what I was going to say. At least it's not that big.
Yeah, so it's not a 1/48 scale Marauder, which I saw was announced by ICM, which would make a lot of people happy. But that's a big airplane. The Tudor is a nice size, so I'm looking forward to that. That'll be cool.
So, Mike, do you have either a fave or a yawn?
I've got a yawn, and I don't know how to couch this. I'm pondering the idea if Scalemates needs to have a restructure in the way they do things.
Okay. How so?
I like Scalemates. Obviously, we've all been on Scalemates looking at this stuff.
Oh yeah,
or wherever, right? I'm just wondering, for my own trying to scroll through all the new stuff all the time, has the scope of the releases reached a tipping point that this single column serial update is kind of not working anymore on Scalemates? And would you guys like to see them cut it a little, even if they cut it coarse to aircraft, armor, or plastic models? I don't know how, but or kits and aftermarket. Sometimes the dump is so big.
You're right. There's so much being produced and so much being announced that, if you go away for a day or two, it can almost be impossible to scroll through everything. But then again, I use the little things up at the top on the side to select for scale. So I end up with a new releases list that's only 70-second scale stuff. I find if I don't put any filter on it at all, it just, there's just so much. It's like drinking from a fire hose. I mean, I will occasionally leave the filter off and scroll through a couple of, pages just to see if I see something in an odd scale that I find interesting. But I almost immediately, when I go to Scalemate's new releases, go over on the right-hand side and click scale filter for 70-second scale, which only currently has 5,597 new releases in the list.
Guys, the hobby's dying. I don't know if you heard that. I saw it on the internet somewhere.
It's a real shame.
I could use the filters. I mean, that would work too. But I like to see everything.
Yeah, so do I.
But it seems like there's just too much everything these days.
That is apt. I will agree with you that if you try to keep up with everything, it's like drinking from a fire hose. So when I go to really winnow down what I find interesting, I almost always filter it by scale just to check.
Well, it's not a dig at Scalemates. I was just more of a curiosity. Is maybe the time is nigh to maybe for a website refresh.
Yeah, maybe.
You got a yawn or a fave, Dave?
Yes, I've got a yawn, and I know as soon as I say this that our friend Steve Hustad is going to find a photograph of an ME-109 shot down and crashed on a chicken farm, and is going to end up using a bunch of these. But a 3D printing company called Offset Scale Models has announced a 3D printed set of 70-second scale chickens. Well, of course, I mean, keep in mind with that one with the sheep, Steve actually basically scratch built all those sheep. So, maybe this will save him a bunch of time when it comes to doing the chicken diorama. But, it's one of those things where you're like, okay, now I've seen everything.
Probably not. There's more to come, man.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, that's, I think, it for the faves and yawns.
Unless Jim's got a yawn.
I don't have any yawns. I just wanted to know when Dave became so anti-poultry.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a good question. We'll save that for a different episode.
Yeah, that might be a different podcast.
That might be. Getting the right size base for your model, diorama, or vignette can be difficult and time-consuming. Bases by Bill has the solution with their all-new custom size display bases, offering sizes of 4 to 30 inches and any size in between. You choose the dimensions you want and you get the size you need every time. They can also be laser engraved with a unit emblem or custom text of your choice. In addition, shipping is always included within the lower 48 states. Built by modelers for modelers, Bases by Bill has bases and display cases for any type of model and for any size. Visit their website at basesbybill.com to see their new products or to get your own custom-built base or display case quote. Use the code MOJO at checkout to apply a 10% listener discount to your order. That code again is MOJO for 10% off. Bases by Bill for all your model display needs. Well, we finally got a refresh on the Bases by Bill ad, and that will air in the next episode. But that brings us to our special segment tonight. And the title of this episode was The Wheel and the Gym Keep on Turning. Jim, did you like that reference?
That is going to get me in so much trouble with a certain leader of the posse because he's a big Journey fan, and I think Journey is bad 80s music. But, hey, it's a funny title.
It is. And tentatively name the wheel.
And?
It's the Wheel of Accidental Wisdom.
Like it.
I do.
That's it for now. If you don't like it, tough crap.
Yeah. Send in a better suggestion.
They sent in a bunch, but I like this one.
All right.
Fasten your seatbelts. How much do you spend a month on your scale modeling hobby on average?
Oh, spend as in money, not time.
Yes, money.
Is this okay to plead the fifth?
What? You're not married. You don't have anybody to answer to on that subject.
Well, true, but it's probably embarrassingly too damn much.
You know what? It comes and goes. I mean, there are times where I'll go 60 plus days and not buy anything hobby related. Then there's a month where I will buy a couple of books and a kit and something else I want, and I'll spend dollars. That's in case the wife tunes into this one. But it really comes and goes. Like I am about to make a significant purchase, one that I've been intending to make for about a year. So, that number's going to go up. But in the scheme of things, and this is the argument I've made about our hobby, compared to somebody whose hobby is bass fishing or golf or, guns, our hobby is cheap as heck, especially when you figure out the amount of time you spend in building a kit. So you amortize it out over all those hours. This is a darn cheap hobby.
Well, the way I look at it is back during my warbird flying days, even the Piper Cub was almost 100 an hour. And I was flying trainers and liaison planes that were, 300 to 500 an hour. So if, I'm a little embarrassed, I probably drop, if you average it out, 100 a month, probably, if not a little bit more. And for some reason, it always goes up around July or August. I can never explain that. But
well, I was gonna say Dave drops that much on in the vendor's room at Nats, and he's sweating this silhouette cutter.
Oh,
right,
yes.
right.
Oh yeah, easily.
It's hard to know what is the end of hobby spending. And one of my other hobbies is music, and I collect vinyl. And I bought 2 vinyl records, I want to say in November, and I felt like after spending money on those 2 records, I was going to be living in a van down by the river. And I don't ever feel the same way with kits, which is weird. But probably 100, 150 a month if you average it out.
I would bet that's...
I think I'll probably spend about that too. I know this in January, since I got my eBay card for Christmas and had some cash from something else come around. I've probably spent 125 in January. So that's probably about right. $100 to $150 a month.
Yeah, I would say that's right. And a lot of times they're really small expenses. Like if, I buy, in fact, I got an order in from Miller, a couple of things of Mr. Color Thinner, Mr. Retarder, and it doesn't amount up to that much. I may drop a little bit on supplies here or there, but no, this hobby is incredibly inexpensive, and it is only as expensive as you make it, because it truly can be really inexpensive. If you buy one kit at a time.
Yeah, if you're a guy who doesn't have a stash and builds one kit at a time, you could spend $50 and that can keep you busy for 6 months.
Yep, absolutely.
If I only bought one kit and then built a kit, and then bought a kit, one purchase would last me like 2 years.
Yeah, well, we're hoping to improve on that, Mike.
All right. What would you eliminate from your modeling that would make you more efficient? It's open-ended.
Procrastination is obviously I'll tell you, in fact, Mike, you and I had a conversation about this. We both have our computers in our model rooms, and we both wonder if that's not detrimental to our hobby. In fact, you rearranged your model room. I don't think you came to the conclusion that you can keep it the way where the computer's currently located. But I do think that, in a more ideal situation, I would not have my computer in my hobby room.
Well, if we didn't have all this FaceTiming and stuff and all these group builds and model nights and crap shoots, I wouldn't either.
That's good stuff. Yeah.
That's my point. That's why this arrangement in my workshop's not going to work.
Right.
Because that stuff's too much of my hobby. So.
Right.
But you've got the mic. You got to eliminate something. What's it going to be? Procrastination is too easy.
Yeah, I know.
What's making you procrastinate? You got to go eliminate that stuff. Got to cut it one level closer there, man.
Yes, I've got to. I'll tell you something. Less time on my damn phone. I got to cut down on useless doom scrolling on my phone. And if I can do that, I can recover. I bet you if I could cut that in half, I'd recover 3 or 4 hours that I could use. Now, not always at the bench, because a lot of times when I'm doom scrolling, I'm, sitting waiting for court or in line at the grocery store. But instead of looking at useless crap on social media, that I could spend the time. I get scale aircraft modeling electronically. I could spend my time reading that, or I could spend my time, if I am on social media, on hobby-focused social media, and at least increase my enjoyment of the hobby rather than looking at just regular Twitter or regular Facebook. I need to curate social media more so that I can recapture some time. That's a 2023 goal. So, Jim, how about you?
I think if we take this to a more holistic view to this, the one thing I want to eliminate from my modeling is seams. Like, I wish everything could be one piece. But I think the real issue is I spend too much time being afraid. And I was sitting at a model meeting last Thursday with Too Tall Tim, and he made a comment about there's so much hand-wringing in this hobby. And I think he's basically saying letting fear take over instead of just do it. And I was kind of offended he would say that to me, because I never overthink things and then not actually build. That would never happen in my life. But I think that's kind of my problem, is just do it. I know you guys have talked about this before, and I don't know if I've talked about this before, but I used to be one of these guys who say, well, I'm going to save that kit till I get better. Well, having no plan to get better, and now that I've hit 50, I'm like, well, crap, is there any reason to save anything? Because, I've only got a finite amount of time to do this. So I think just do it instead of fearing the airbrush or being too concerned. And even going back to the seams, if it's on the bottom, you can't really see it that much. So,
unless you're in Australia,
I want to
they
improve
pick
my
it up.
modeling, but I also want to get more done.
You are right, absolutely correct. Saving any model till later now, given where we are in life, makes zero sense. If you want it, build it.
Right.
You know, and if
I
it
also
doesn't,
kind of had a realization looking at my model cabinets that I don't have some of my favorite airplanes in them. So I'm just going to build what I want to build and not being scared.
I completely agree with that. Mike, give us the practical viewpoint.
Perfection is the enemy of the good.
Yes.
Yep.
I think I can overthink things and dwell on them too long. And it's kind of dovetails with you, Jim. It's just to just do it. A lot of times it's not fear. It's just, what's the solution I want to implement? It is fear a lot of times. I'm not going to excuse myself from being scared about trying new things and worrying I'm going to break something or wreck something and end up bending a model. But I think sometimes I do too much cerebral modeling. I build these things in my head and I get too much satisfaction. Maybe I'm getting too much satisfaction out of that. Maybe I need to get back to the tangible reality and actually build this stinking thing instead of creating this project and how I'm going to do it. This roadmap, I can just keep adding detail to the roadmap instead of actually building the model.
I like that description.
I got some nicer looking roadmaps, but nobody can see them but me.
All right, spin the wheel.
Can you guys hear the wheel?
Yes. Yep.
What subject won't you try because you think it would look like bad modeling?
That's easy. Gloss paint on a car.
I don't want to say I won't try it, but I am
in public.
In public, because you're right, in public. I may eventually try some figures, but given my challenges, I'm never going to produce a halfway acceptable figure. And so if I do it, it will be in the privacy of my own model room, and there will not be any photographs or anything else of it ever, because I'm pretty sure it would look like bad modeling. Jim?
I already answered. Gloss paint on a car.
Oh, you can do it.
Yeah, you could do that. You really can.
I think I lack the motivation to do it, and I think that gloss paint...
That was the other spin.
Yeah. I think gloss paint is just a unforgiving medium, and I would, unless I was building like the orange version of the Wienermobile, like the Orange Mobile, I think it just would be bad looking.
Mike?
The figure thing too, the bust thing. But I think I could probably get decent enough to be satisfied with my results if I would just do it more. So I don't think that's really it. I'm not going to be a Calvin Tan ever. I don't think, at least not building one figure every 4 years.
Right.
It's going to be kind of hard to get there. Right.
Yeah.
Not that I think I could even get there anyway, but that's a different podcast topic. I still feel like I struggle with diorama composition, and I think I don't try any of the ideas I have sometimes because I'm aware of those limitations, and I don't want to try to implement the idea because I don't think I can pull it off, and I think it'll look bad.
Well, that's the overcoming fear thing. You need to, because again, I go back to the conversation that Barry Numerick, Jeff Groves, and I had up in Cincinnati where we were talking about building more and building faster. And that alone has the ability to make you a better modeler. And I know if you're doing dioramas and you're only doing one diorama every couple of years, I recognize the challenge of that limitation. None of us are night shift and are finishing a diorama in every 2 or 3 weeks. I can see your composition getting better and better as you go along, just from doing it more and more.
That's probably true. So maybe I just need to get on the stick.
There you go. Spin that wheel.
This is like modeling adjacent.
Okay.
What modeling related list do you track in a spreadsheet?
Oh, that one's easy for me. I'll go first. Decal sheets.
God, I'd hope.
Thank you. I have an Excel spreadsheet of all my decal sheets. All my decal sheets are in binders they have those clear sleeves in them. And the binders are numbered on the face, like 1 through 63, 64 through 115. And then I have a corresponding spreadsheet where I can put in or search for a particular type of aircraft, and it will tell me all the decal sheets that contain decals for that type of aircraft. And speaking of which, I need to update that spreadsheet because unfortunately I buy decals.
Jim, you got a list?
This is where I just am too much of a hippie lawyer to do a spreadsheet. I ostensibly have a spreadsheet of a lot of my models are in 4 big boxes down storage a floor below me. And in theory, I have a spreadsheet of what's in each box. But the problem is I'll go into the box, take things out, put things in, take a look at them. So I have an out-of-date list of what's in those boxes.
Well, for me, it's my evergreen sheet styrene, rod, tube, and strip stock list. And it's when I figure out something I need, I will check that first, see if I've got it or had it, and my list isn't current. I'll go then before I go look in my big pile, because at the old house, I had drawers and had all arranged really nice, but it's literally been packed in a single box since we moved into this house, which was an obscene number of years ago at this point. And it just helps me to keep it all straight. And at some point, I'm going to use it to order a bunch more and get all the stuff I'm missing. So I know, so I don't have to run to Hobbytown at the last minute to go see what they don't have.
Well, and in fairness to you, that's not as weird as it might seem, because you use a whole heck of a lot.
Yeah, I'm all the time digging in there.
Yeah.
That might be the most Mike thing I've heard on this show ever. I have a spreadsheet of my evergreen.
Okay, Jim, you're not wrong, buddy. You're not wrong.
It's so engineer, it makes me laugh.
Yep. Yeah. What's really I'm waiting for is him to have one of these cabinets with all these tiny little drawers, and each type of styrene in each drawer, and a little Dymo label on the front.
We'll get there.
And a spreadsheet. All right, spin the wheel.
I'll remember this mocking when you have to borrow some styrene.
Yeah, it's true.
This is an easy one, I think, but we'll figure out something to talk about. Boxes, keep or toss?
Before or after you build the kit?
It wasn't qualified to such, so you can answer it either way you want, Dave.
Before, obviously, I keep all my kits in boxes, which does take up a lot of space, and I have met at least 1 or 2 modelers who toss the boxes and they put the kit sprues in large Ziploc bags, like gallon size or bigger Ziploc bags, depending on the kit. Once I am done with the model, that box goes in the trash. I don't save the box art. I used to save instruction sheets because you might need them. Now they're available on the internet. And so I toss the box and everything. Jim?
It all goes in the recycle bin or the trash. I don't want to keep this stuff. In fact, I love it when I get to the point that the model's too big to go back in the box, and I can toss the box even before it's finished.
Well, I don't keep them. In fact, sometimes I'm tempted. Some of the times the box art is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's on the internet.
Exactly.
Some people, I don't know if I can't remember who asked this one, but I can't think. I could see maybe cutting the front panel off the box top and keeping the artwork.
Yeah.
Because if you did that, you could save a lot of space. But
Well, and I do know people who have cut the box top off, and I've heard of people framing them and turning them into.
Some of them are that good.
Yeah. And I know with Jim previously we've discussed the Airfix box art from the classic 60s, 70s.
And the Matchbox.
And Matchbox. And those, those were some very classic, very inspirational pieces of art. Not to mention the Hasegawa stuff in the 80s and 90s.
Well, yeah, pretty much goes to the recycle bin.
Yep.
If you're keeping them, I'm curious what you're doing with them, folks.
Yes. Talk to us.
That's like your stash takes up twice as much space if you keep the box. What next? Ooh, your biggest modeling aha.
My biggest.
Actually, to me, I think it's a combination of things.
You go while Dave thinks.
Yeah, you go while I'm thinking about this, because there's a lot of them.
I believe it or not, I really struggle with a lot of the basic stuff of modeling. And one of the things that always used to be a struggle was not so much getting parts off the sprue, but getting the sprue nibs cleaned up. For some reason, I just always had a hard time doing that. And to me, the revolutionary things were, and I want to say the God Hand nipper, but it really was a Tamiya nipper I got before the God Hand. So high quality nippers and scalpel blades. Instead of messing around with these half dull X-Actos, once I went to scalpel and a quality nipper, those problems went away. So that was a pretty big aha moment.
I've got many, but I'll just pick out one that's been fairly recent, and that is dealing with seams and ghost seams. And, you'd work on a model, you'd get rid of the seam, you'd hit it with primer, and you would see what many people refer to as a ghost seam. And only in the last few years, and I know, okay, I'm stupid, I'm slow, whatever, have I figured out that a lot of that is not really a ghost seam, but has to do with the differential polish on the plastic compared to where the seam was and where it wasn't, and that you solve 99% of those by hitting the seam with a second round of Mr. Surfacer 1500 black primer in the rattle can, and they disappear and stay disappeared. That I don't know why it took me so long to figure it out, but it did. And once I figured it out, it improved the speed of my modeling, because I was not going back and hitting seams again and again and again. Mike?
Well, for me, I think it was, it's why I like the Goodman sanding blocks so much. I had some before that I'd make myself, and is getting to that point, not overusing those foam back sanding sticks and stuff. And you need to maintain a sharp edge on something, and you're going to town on some sprue gate or some on a part, and you're using one of those soft face things.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, you got the corners gone. I'm like, what the heck? I was being careful. And just to learn, when I really learned which sanding tool I need to use for what situation, and try to, instead of trying to use a one size fits all approach to that. So just tool knowledge.
That's a good one. Tool knowledge. Well, if you take what Jim was talking about with the nippers and sharp scalpel blades, I would say that's a subject we might expand into a full special segment. Is tool knowledge, knowing what tool you need for what job, and the fact that you might save a few bucks buying the cheap tool, but in general, that's not truly a savings when you take into account the differential effect. We might have to make that a whole special segment, because I think we could talk about that for a long time.
And I'll give you the title right now. Don't be a tool, buy good tools.
Oh, I like that. Okay, Mike, write that down.
All right. So if any other podcasts out there use that, you
know where it came from.
You're a thief.
You're a thief. Stop it.
Oh, here's kind of the flip side of that. Modeling techniques once used, once loved, but now rarely used.
I can think of at least one in general, and we joked about this.
What is it?
Dry brushing.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go.
I was going to say.
Yeah.
I remember when dry brushing was the modeling technique. There was no chipping. There was no pin washes. There was no, any of all of this stuff that we see now. It was all about dry brushing and what you could do with dry brushing and the different layers you could create with dry brushing. Many of those techniques are actually still applicable in certain situations. But back at the time in the 80s and 90s, it was the technique, and it's faded into obscurity, at least until AK comes out with their dry brushing paints. Oh, wait a minute. They already have, haven't they?
To pile on, it's I laugh because it's a little worse than that. I mean, when the current crop of techniques were avant-garde, not only did dry brushing fall out of favor, it was made a pariah. The idea
it was actively mocked.
It was actually actively mocked and panned,
even in situations where it was applicable.
And I just the irony of some of these companies now who were propagating that that line of philosophy, I guess, coming out with dry brush paint. That's rich. That's all.
Yes.
All I can say about that. Well, Jim, what do you got to say?
You guys took the most obvious one, but I'm gonna take one that's a little bit different, and maybe this is growing up as a child of the 80s. Is before resin, there was a lot of UK white metal coming on the market. Aero Club being the most well-known.
Yes.
There's a company called C-Scale. You had all these kits, all these detail parts in white metal, and nobody's using that anymore.
Nope, that just completely disappeared. And you're right. I mean, at one time, Aero Club was the go-to for aftermarket engines and aftermarket propellers and aftermarket ejection seats, all in white metal. And
I still have a lot of that stuff, but nobody's making it anymore.
So do I. But you are right. That's one I think where technology between resin and then I think 3D printing is probably going to do to resin what resin did to white metal.
I think you're probably right. Though I do wonder if we're always going to see resin, because resin works really well for like wire intensive cockpits.
Yeah.
But I think for a lot of what we're seeing in resin, we're going to see it in 3D print.
Yep, I agree.
Which technically still is resin, I guess. But
I know.
Just a different kind.
It's just not cast resin.
Right.
Good stuff.
Spin that wheel, Mike.
Got to watch the time, man.
I'm having fun, man.
Modeling derelicts.
Okay, what does that mean?
The hyper-weathered junk heap, the abandoned whatever.
Oh, and, you mean the ones where they take the weathering to an extreme?
Yes.
There's a time and a place for it, but unless you are actually modeling a long abandoned piece of equipment, I think this might get at the weathering trend, particularly in armor.
I think that's what they are modeling. Well, there's you see a lot of these Soviet aircraft abandoned airbase things too,
But if that's what you're modeling, I've got no problem with that. If you are making every vehicle you build, including ones that are purportedly still in service,
Well, that's outside the scope of the topic. This is specifically derelicts, not allegedly overweathered models.
I think that can be a wonderful exercise in weathering. If you want to model a long abandoned car, well, again, ring the bell because we're going to mention his name. Night Shift, not that long ago, did that VW Bug that was abandoned in the woods. And that was a beautiful exercise in, let's call it hyper weathering, a long abandoned vehicle. And it looked like what it purported to be. I have no problem with that. In fact, I think that can be a great way to push yourself and push your skills, trying something that weathers to that extent, but you're still attempting to make it look realistic. So I've got no problem with that in and of itself.
Jim, you got an opinion here? Because I do. I'm saving mine.
I was just going to say, who sent that message and how dare they describe me that way? But other than that, I have no input. So go ahead, Mike.
I guess fundamentally, you could say I had an axe to grind. A lot of these things are beautiful, but my axe that I ground, it was from my more competitive days. So it was at AMPS one year, and the model that won Best Russian was a derelict T-28 bridging tank that had a bunch of modern graffiti sprayed painted on it. And I, at that time, couldn't reconcile that, because coming at it from the historical point of view, that's the way I approach my modeling. In my mind, when that thing, when its crew, when it was in service and its crew handed it over for the last time to the motor pool and they went and scrapped it, it stopped being what it was intended to be. Like a British chieftain as a range target. Okay. It stopped being a chieftain tank when it was decommissioned. Now it's a chunk of steel. So now if that model goes out there and wins best British armor, I can't, call me wrong, call me stupid, I can't get my head around that. I think that's outside the vein of I don't even know how to say it.
So your objection is to the classification of it as Russian armor when it no longer really constituted Russian armor, but was simply scrap metal that used to
that's a good way to say it.
A piece of Russian armor, or in the case of a chieftain,
that's right,
a piece of British armor.
That's right.
That it would be an other instead of best British or best Russian, because it no longer was and I don't want to say operational, because clearly that's not the constraint you're going for, but it was at that point no longer.
It's almost a spiritual thing.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
It's no longer that subject in spirit. So in my opinion, it should be something else. Gotcha. But there's some beautiful work being done, and I don't object to it. Now, I've called it modeling Baroque before, and I'll stand by that.
Yeah.
Some of it is way over the top, but it's freaking amazing.
Yep.
But in my opinion, that's what it is. It's kind of a Baroque approach to scale modeling, and that's fine. Yep. Well, guys, we're getting long here. You want to do one more?
One more. Yeah. Spin that wheel.
Got to figure out which computer I'm on. We're going to need some new topics after this.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot to delete that one.
Okay.
We already did it.
Spin it.
The wrong button. We got to spin it again, as Bob Barker once said.
There you go.
Spin it again.
Mike, I've just disturbed that you've not at any way referenced about spin it right round like a record right round, but whatever.
I see, you just did it.
Oh, jeez. Okay, I can tell that was a musical reference. I have zero clue what you two just said.
It's an 80s song that got turned into a rap song in the 90s, I think. Either late 90s or early 00s.
Okay. But I want wait a minute. I want to stake this ground right here. Music died in 1976, and there has been no progress since that point.
Thank you, Grandpa.
That's not true at all. This was timely because we had an interesting exchange on the dojo. Have you ever forgotten a part and not realized it until it was pretty much too late to do anything about it?
Oh, God, yes. On at least one, if not more, one occasion, I have looked into a sealed cockpit to realize that I left the control column out.
Well, that sucks.
The answer to that is yes. And at that point, you're not doing anything about it.
I was going to say, I think I do this on about every model. I either lose a part or inadvertently forget something.
I don't know that I've had a total disaster. I'm trying to think. I don't think I have.
Have you ever left off a part and then realized it at the end, but were still able to save it by attaching it? Because that's kind of a related.
I've probably done that. I can't think of an example in recent history.
I can remember an F4, F3, I completely left the pitot tube off of until I entered it in a contest, and it won. And then when I got it home, I realized, oh, heck, you forgot to put the pitot tube on the wing. So, I did, and everything was fine, but, just goes to show you.
I've certainly done what you've done, Dave, where you leave the control column out or you leave cockpit parts out, and then just before you're putting the canopy on, you realize, oh crap, I left these out, and then you're looking all over. Where are they? What tin or box are they in to put them in before it's too late?
Well, see, mine is worse. I have, at least on one occasion, if not more than one, actually put the canopy on, sealed it, masked it, painted it, took the masking off, looked down through the glass, and realized I had not put the control column in there.
Oh, wow.
And at that point, it's like, okay, if somebody catches me, that's great.
I have a bad tendency of losing those, I guess they're CO2 or oxygen bottles and Spitfires. So I've built a couple Spitfires that I'm not sure you can see it's missing, but it's not really in there.
All right. Well, we better wrap it up there, guys, because we could go on and on.
Yeah.
This is fun. I'm telling you what, I really like the wheel. Now, we used up a lot of subjects, guys, so we're counting on you to refill the wheel. So if you've got an idea for a quick topic or a quick subject, please send it in to us. Guys, if we're at the end of the episode, that means we're probably toward the end of our modeling fluid. You want to give us a 15-second summary, Jim?
This is a maybe the worst modeling fluid summary ever. I forget what bourbon the Noffels gave me, but it's really good, and maybe that's why I forgot it.
Well, the Michter's is still good. It's gone now, but highly recommend Michter's Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. If you want to spend a little bit more, go for it.
Which is made in Louisville, Kentucky. Literally, their home offices are 2 blocks from my office in downtown Louisville. My modeling fluid was the Lexington Brewing Company's Charismatic Pilsner. It's 4.5% alcohol, so it's a really good light beer to drink, particularly in the summer if you're out by the pool or you're doing yard work. It's refreshing. It's got a fair amount of body to it for a golden Pilsner. It really has, it doesn't taste like water. A lot of beer, when you get to the lighter alcohols and the lighter beers, tend to be indistinguishable from water. They don't really have much flavor. This one does. I can recommend it. Jim, why don't you start with your shout out of the month?
All right. Well, unfortunately, my shout out is not a positive one. We are kind of reeling here in the Pacific Northwest Seattle modeling community. One of our denzines of modeling and IPMS president for life, Terry Moore, passed away on Tuesday. I think between 5 and 6 o'clock, and it's just hard. No, Monday. Sorry, it was Monday. And just hard to figure out. He was a great man, great modeler, great friend, and it's hard to even comprehend that he won't be at the next meeting. So kind of been a sad couple days here in Seattle.
Yeah, and I'm afraid, given that our hobby skews older, we are going to continue to confront this, and it doesn't get any easier. I had a few interactions over the years with him. A really, really nice person.
Yeah, I saw somebody described on the internet. He was tall and his personality was equally large, and that's totally true. He was a huge B-17 fan. I didn't learn this till later in life, and I think I mentioned this last time I was on. He had a model company in the 80s, 299 models. So my first interaction was buying a short-run BD5J from him through the mail, and then many, many, many years later, meeting him in person and getting to call him a friend, and that was kind of cool. But yeah, way too young, and it just sucks. It's hard to even know what to say. So,
well, and Jim, it does go to emphasize, this is a hobby about little plastic kits, and we spend a lot of time at our bench alone building. But really, the best aspect of this hobby is the people we meet along the way, which is why I always encourage people to go to contests, go to the nationals. I mean, the contests are fun, the vendor rooms are great, and all of that. But the interactions you have with other modelers are truly the best part of the hobby. It brings us together. So I'll miss him. It's a shame.
So I'll miss Terry. Thoughts are with Jill. I'm not even sure how she's handling this, and just it's been a sad couple days.
Understood. My shout out this episode is to all of the people over the last couple of months, and there's almost too many of you to acknowledge by name, who have joined or rejoined IPMS USA. I can tell you I just finished up the last board meeting a couple of days ago, and the number of members is at 4,733, somewhere in there. And IPMS USA has not had that many members in a number of years. Before I took over as retention and recruitment secretary. I want to thank each and every one of you. Now I'm going to ask you an additional favor, and that is to participate in the organization, whether you contact the folks who do the kit reviews, or you interact on the forum, because IPMS USA does have a forum, parts of which are restricted only to members. The society gets better the more people participate in it, and I want to thank you for joining. I take it as a personal compliment and a personal favor for each and every person who's done that. And now get more involved in the hobby and in the national organization, and I guarantee you'll have more fun.
Well, I don't have the list of names in front of me, but I'll reconcile that in the next episode. But I need to shout out all the new Patreon and PayPal contributors who have helped the show along financially. If you'd like to contribute to Plastic Model Mojo, you can do so one of two ways. If you would like to make a recurring contribution, you can go to Patreon at www.patreon.com/Plastic Model Mojo, or just search for Plastic Model Mojo in their search bar once you get to Patreon. And there you can sign in for a recurring contribution from $1 on up, and they'll handle all the billing for that on a monthly basis. If you'd like to make a one-time contribution or manage your own recurring contribution, you can do that through PayPal. And if you go to www.plasticmodelmojo.com, there's a heart icon in the upper right-hand corner of the page, and you can follow that link to our PayPal page and do whatever you like there. And we really appreciate it. It's going to help us bring you a great 2023 for Plastic Model Mojo. So thank you very much.
Well, guys, I think we're getting toward the end of the episode.
I think we are too, Dave. And Jim, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right, Dave. So many kits.
So little time.